right. Well, good morning, everyone. The time is now 9:12 a.m. I call the order the November 18, 2025 licensing committee meeting of the Contractor State License Board. I'm Henry Nutt III, CSLB's 2025-2026 licensing committee chair. Just rules of engagements here. Understand that only board members who are members of the licensing committee may participate in this committee meeting. Other board members who are in attendance may observe but cannot ask questions or participate in the discussion. Committee members, please leave your cameras on during the meeting, please. When you would like to comment during the meeting, please select raise your hand icon in Teams. I will call on committee members to speak. When called upon, please unmute yourself, and when finished, please return to mute. Public Affairs Supervisor David Gallo is our host and moderator today. Today's meeting will provide the committee meeting with some updates on important licensing projects and priorities. Because the teleconference committee meeting is fully remote, committee members cannot make recommendations or motions. However, committee members can gather information, receive comments, and discuss among themselves what will be included in a summary report of the meeting that will be available to the full board at the December 11th board meeting. I will now note for the record that Mary Teichert has an approved absence for today. Katie, can you please call roll and establish a quorum?
Yes. Henry Nutt.
Here.
Amanda Gallo.
Here.
Alan Guy.
Here.
Jacob Lopez.
Here.
Steve Panelli. I believe he's not going to be able to make it. He has excused absence. Jim Ruane. I believe he's having some technical difficulties right now. And Mary Teichert has an excused absence. We are in quorum.
Thank you, Katie. I think we're at the slide for our Pledge of Allegiance. Can I ask everyone to stand as we take the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, both justice. Thank you. Next slide, please. So moving to agenda item B, which is for public comment and to request agenda items for future meetings. The board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I'm limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this will be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of your agenda items, we encourage you to wait until we get to that item. We'll give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. We also ask that your public comment relate to the agenda item currently before the board. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matters brought up during public comment, and board members are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda of a future meeting. Finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because board members may be the judges and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not a part of the administrative record in that case. Do any board members have any item they would like to place on a future agenda? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public?
No online public comments.
Thank you, Dave. Next slide, please. We have two topics. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but board member and committee member Jim Ruane is participating but unable to get on the video. And for the record, I just want to note some technical difficulties getting in through the system and being unable to register. But he is able to listen and speak without his camera. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. So we have two topics to cover in our meeting today. Strategic Plan, item 1.6, identify and educate licensees on the need to maintain current certifications to promote proper installations, and the B2 residential remodeling trade as a possible pathway to a B general building trade. It's Karen Gagnon, the licensing chief, to discuss the first item.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you everybody for coming and pushing through on those technical difficulties. We appreciate you showing up. So for strategic plan, yes, we're at the right slide. Had to catch myself. So for strategic plan item 1.6, staff researched both government and trade association certifications available to the trade. Their goals were to identify governmental and trade associations and then determine which ones to add to the license history page on our website, the study guides, and the Get Licensed to Build webinar. There are 3 government certifications. Okay, this is where we go to the next slide. There we go. There are 3 government certifications or registrations that are required for everyone in this specific trade. So DOSH registration is required for everyone in the C22 asbestos abatement trade. The HUD manufactured housing installation is required for all C47 general manufactured housing contractors, and the BSIS locksmith license is required for everyone in C28 lock and security equipment trade and the D16 hardware locks and safes limited specialty trade. There are other government certifications that are required for most work in a certain trade, but not necessarily all. So the DIR electrician certification, the EPA universal refrigerant certification, and the DOSH elevator certification are required for almost everybody in that trade, but not quite everyone, because it depends on the work we're doing. Well, staff do not have the responsibility to check every licensee's certification on these other government websites. They recommend or suggest that we add a web link to the license history page of each license with these classifications. It would say something to the effect of, this license may also be registered with this other agency, list the website. Please click here to search for their registration so that consumers can check and see, is this C22 contractor registered with DOSH like they're supposed to be? Next slide, please. So many trade associations have other certification programs and training available, but these are not required for CSLB's trade. They're also often directed towards the employee working for the contractor, but not necessarily the contractor themselves. The manufacturers will also require training and certification to install certain products, but they require the company to send staff to the training only if they're actually going to install that product. It's not required for all companies in that field of work. Next slide. So what staff would like is we'd like your input on 2 items. We can do this today, we can push it to the board meeting. First, what they want to do is add the following statement to the license history page for every single licensee license record that holds a C22, C47, C28, or D16 to state this license may also be licensed, registered, or certified with this other agency website here. Please click here to search for the registration. That way consumers can double check. Additionally, they wanted to know, are you interested in that? And would you like them to add the statement to trades like the C10, where most contractors, but not all, might have that certification as well? And the second question is, would you like staff to mention that there could be other government requirements in places like the application instructions, the Get Licensed to Build webinar, and the study guides? This would educate applicants about possible required certifications from other government agencies that they may not have known about.
So, Carol, just to clarify, so you're asking the committee to discuss this and make a recommendation, but they will not be able to vote today.
That is correct. That is correct.
Alan, looks like he has it.
Yeah, I think if we go back a slide, I think this is a great idea, but I think we should be more clear about because it says may also be registered, and like for asbestos and some of those licenses, you have to have both. So I think it'd be good to point out which ones. The may makes it sound to me like, oh, well, they're not registered for CSLB. Maybe they're registered over here, and it's fine. So I think if we're going to do this, I think we should point out that which licenses also need a different registration.
Is your concern met with getting rid of the word also?
Yeah, I just think it should say this license, it should say something like this, this license. I don't know the best way to state it. You're the lawyer, but like for the asbestos, like this license also requires the contractor to carry a DOSH certification. You need the CSLB and the DOSH one, right? That's the only one I know off the top of my head. I don't know how the rest of them work, but I would think that we should say.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think, member Guy, that just some words that are more definitive. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, is there any public comment?
No online public comments.
Dave, did you have a concern?
No, I just want to mention, we do have public with us in person in Sacramento, potentially also on the, online remotely. You guys have anything about linking the government website?
Phil Vermeulen, I think it's a good idea. Absolutely. Which I was also thinking though, because we've been talking about it for my almost 45 years of dealing with the license board, about continuing education. I know it's a whole nother can of worms and all of that, but for example, what's your biggest problem? Your biggest problem is home improvement. What percentage of your problem is home improvement? 90% of all the work that you do, 95, whatever that number is. Laws change every year. The home improvement contract, and I give credit to the registrar on the board for putting now the home improvement contract on the website. But I think 99.9% of home improvement contractors don't know diddly about what their requirements are. And there should be some kind of a annual check-in or something that teaches them about what the latest changes are about the home improvement contract and that kind of stuff. I know it's a lot of work, but I mean, when you look at how much time you spend on home improvement enforcement and all of that, are there ways that we can be proactive? So I add that and pile on everything else, but that's my 2 cents worth. Mr. Vermeulen, do you have anything?
Sure. Yeah, Kyle Vermeulen. I think it's a great idea as well. As far as I know, some of these outside entities where you have to be registered only pop up in a few places. First, like the asbestos test, the online asbestos test. I know mentions about DOSH. Some mentions about EPA. In terms of the May also, I agree with Board Member Allen. I think it does need to be more definitive. It could just say licenses with this classification are subject to additional registrations. You may check here. Something to that effect. That way it sounds a bit more definitive, but at the same time leaves a little bit of area where not every contractor may be required to be holding that specific registration.
Mr. Pierce. I agree with the twins.
David, is there anything on remotely with the question or comment?
No online comments.
If I could just to summarize, it sounds like the committee's in favor of pushing this forward at the December 11th board meeting for a vote. We could have examples that we could provide at that time, a little bit more information, and make the edits that Alan suggested. Is that right, Karen?
That sounds good to me. I'm taking notes.
Okay. Sounds like we have a game plan for moving this forward on the next board meeting.
Yes, for the board to take a formal vote to do provide this link to other government agencies.
Yeah. All right, Henry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carol. All right, so our next slide, we are going into B2 residential remodeling as a pathway for an AB.
One more slide.
Are we at the right slide?
We are now.
Okay, thank you. So the second topic before the committee today is the B2 residential remodeling classification as a pathway to licensure for the B general building trade. The B2 trade was created to address two issues. First, two applicants applying for the B general trade, building trade, were rejected because they had no structural or framing experience. Second, unlicensed handypersons were doing jobs consisting of multiple unrelated trades like changing plumbing fixtures and cabinets in a bathroom, then painting the wall, but these would not qualify them for a license with CSLB. The B2 license allows licensees to work in 3 or more unrelated trades and does not require a structural or framing experience. Next slide, please. The B2 residential remodeling trade was first released in August of 2021. The trade description was written to specifically exclude any structural or behind the wall work as seen on this slide. Want to see that? Next slide, please. The next slide indicates how the B2 was written to cover the work of a handy person who worked in multiple trades and wanted to continue doing that work. The next slide, the B general building trade, however, qualifies license holders to build homes, commercial buildings, and other structural buildings. Because of the work they do, they must have some structural experience in order to qualify for the license and sit for the exam. Next slide. DCA Legal Affairs Office has weighed in on the topic of requiring structural or framing experience for the B general building trade. They have stated that this type of experience is required for applicants to the B trade to avoid the issue of someone doing just plumbing and flooring or drywall and insulation and earning a license to build houses. Next slide. When the B2 trade was first advertised in April of 2021, it was advertised as a pathway to licensure for those who had some journey level trade experience in a variety of trades but could not qualify for the B license because they didn't have the framing or the rough carpentry experience. In the next slide, the dilemma is that a person who is licensed as a B2 contractor is specifically excluded from doing the structural or framing work that would let them gain experience necessary to add B general building classification to their license. In the next slide, since August 2021, over 1,300 people have been qualified for the B2 classification. 74 of them have a B classification or the license as well. In the next slide, executive staff met with 2-member handyperson advisory committee last Friday. During that meeting, Carol explained the issues with the B2 residential remodeling licensees trying to qualify for a B general building trade. Staff proposes conducting a survey of the active licensed B2 contractors to determine why they choose B2 as a trade. Was it because this is the work they wanted to do? Was it to qualify for lower insurance rates, or did they hope to use the experience to qualify for a B license later on? This slide and the next show the proposed survey to determine if the B2 licensees did intend to have a pathway for a B or choose this classification for some other reason. Next slide. The survey will take about 6 weeks to complete, 1 to create it, and 4 to have open for responses so staff can get enough replies, and 1 to calculate the results. Staff should have results ready for the March 2026 board meeting so the board can discuss their options then. If the survey results indicate that licensees did intend to gain experience for a B license, then the board will need to decide how best to respond. Next slide. Nevada's solution is to offer a restricted license, the B7, that will give candidates a limited license if they meet certain requirements and allow them to gain experience on smaller jobs under that license with the goal that they can qualify and apply for a full general contractor's license after 2 years. If CSLB's survey results show that a number of B2 contractors would like a pathway to add a B classification, staff proposes the following option. In the next slide here, create a new B3 certification that will allow B2 licensees and other trades to gain experience for the B license in a way that protects the public. The B3 certification would allow certification holders to build garages, sheds, pergolas, patio covers, and other structural work, but not houses or home additions. The certification will require the following: a B3 certification exam, the law and business exam. Because these would be licensed contractors adding the certification, they would already have a $25,000 contractor's bond, be fingerprinted and meet other licensing requirements. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I want to open up the floor for comments from the board.
Does B2 have to take the trade? It doesn't have to. What test does the B2 have to take currently to get to B2?
We created a specific B2 exam that they take that covers all of the work that they do. So the B2 does take a trade exam right now.
And do they take the law exam too or not?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Does the B2 exam include any framing or carpentry?
It does not, because it isn't within the scope.
Board Member Gallo has their hand up.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So the goal of the survey is to review if that's the right licensing or test requirements, or what is the goal of the survey?
So the idea is to determine, did the B2s get the B2 license in order to actually earn experience for a B, or did they get the B2 license because that's actually what they wanted to do? There was some debate about that. Why did they pick a B2? Was it because they couldn't qualify for a B and they wanted it, or for another reason? So if we see that they're all satisfied with the B2, we don't have a problem. They're getting the license they want, then they can, other people can go forward and get other experience and get a B. But if we see that the B2s actually wanted a B and cannot get that experience, then this is the proposal for them to be able to go forward with that.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. Any public comment?
No online public comments.
Okay, with that said, this concludes the License Committee meeting.
Well, we have one more comment from the room.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, if I could. One reason why this came to the committee's attention is because I've heard from one licensing school in particular that there are B2 licensees that are seeking a pathway to the B general building class. And apparently the person that brought this forward is not with us today. It's unfortunate. But when I talked to Carol about it, the thought was, do we have B2s that right now they're restricted as to the work that they can do? So they're doing maybe upgrading a bathroom. They can do the fixtures, they can paint, flooring it, but they can't do any behind the wall work. They can't expand it to more of a larger bathroom or kitchen remodel. And so in hearing that there were licensees that were seeking a pathway, we thought we should bring this forward and survey our B2s to see if in fact they're looking at the B2 as a bridge or pathway to the full B. Because as it stands today, the experience you gain with the B2 will never qualify you for the B general building contractor class. You'd have to find a qualifier for the B class, or you'd have to go work for a general building contractor to obtain experience. And so that's why I think we brought this forward to see if you're in favor of surveying the B2s and maybe taking that information back to this committee or to the board and to see if we need to look at creating something to give them that experience. I don't know, Phil or Kyle, if you've had any applicants or anybody bring this to your attention?
I've had one applicant since the B2's been initiated, and they didn't even follow through with it. I think once they realized that the structural framing was going to be out of that, they decided that it'd be better off to have somebody that has the experience for structural framing and get through the 4 years that way.
I think it's not a bad idea, to do something like, it kind of goes back to the step licensing idea that's been talked about forever. And I don't think it's a bad idea whatsoever. And I do think that when you really drill down, you're gonna find out a lot of these guys really do want to become the full Bs. So
So this is really fact finding to see if there is a need for additional certification or classification.
yeah, okay.
If I ask a question, so there's 1,300 B2 licenses since 2021. How's that compared to, obviously not like a full B of A, but to like a plumbing class or refrigeration, something like that?
It's actually right in the middle.
Really?
So we have a lot of smaller trades, boiler, elevator.
Sure.
The B itself has 106,000 licensees, by far biggest.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's actually a pretty decent number, especially in just 4 years. It's pretty amazing. We're really excited about it.
Cool.
So.
Glad to know that.
Have we had any, is there any indication of what the responses will be? Have others kind of showed an interest in this or?
Not that I know of. Our average response rate for surveys is about 10%, but this is a very, very short survey compared to the rest. I mean, it's basically 3 questions. So I'm hoping we will get an increased response rate because of the fact that it's so short. It's going to take you 3 minutes to go in, click, 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 fill it out and submit it. So I'm hoping it will be a slightly higher response rate than 10% because of that.
Thanks, Carol. Are there any other comments? Still none from the public, I'm assuming.
No online public comments.
Okay, if there aren't any other comments there, then I say this concludes the Licenses Committee meeting for today. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.
The time is 10 a.m. I call to order the November 18, 2025 meeting of the Contractors State License Board's Legislative Committee. I am Joel Barton, Legislative Chair. Let us start today's committee meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and being that we're all remote, I guess we can, stand if you wish. I don't know, I'll see if I stand. I have my Steelers pajamas on, so I don't know if anybody wants to see that. So I'll remain seated and lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance. So cross your heart with your hand and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. Please note that only board members who are members of the Legislative Committee may participate in this committee meeting. Other board members who are in attendance may observe but cannot ask questions or participate in the discussion. Because this teleconference committee meeting is remote, committee members cannot make recommendations or motions. However, committee members can discuss and receive comments from the public on today's agenda items. Committee members, we will be using cameras during this meeting. The law requires committee members participating in this meeting to have their cameras on. Please have your cameras on for the duration of the meeting. When you would like to comment during the meeting, please select Raise Your Hand icon in the Teams application. Our moderator will call on committee members to speak. When called upon, please unmute yourself, and when finished, return to mute. Katie, please call roll and confirm we have a quorum.
Joel Barton.
Here.
Rodney Cobos.
Here.
Diana Love.
Here.
Michael Mark.
Here.
Joseph Preciado.
Here.
Thomas Ruiz.
Here.
We are all set. We're in a quorum.
Thank you, Katie. CSLB staff participating in today's meeting include Registrar David Folk, Chief Deputy Registrar Estelle Champlain, Legislation Chief Rebecca May, and Executive Office staff Katie Carrasco. We are also fortunate to have with us John Kinn, DCA Board Counsel. Public Affairs Supervisor David Gower is moderating this meeting. We now move on to Agenda Item B. Agenda Item B is an opportunity for members of the public to provide comment regarding items not on today's agenda. State law prohibits committee members from discussing any item not on the agenda. If you want the committee to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask the committee to consider placing that issue on the agenda of a future meeting. If your comment is related to a specific agenda item, please wait until that item comes up. We will ask for public comment on each agenda item. Lastly, to allow the committee enough time to conduct its full schedule of business, public comment is limited to 3 minutes apiece. Public Affairs Supervisor David Gower is our host and moderator today. He will assist us by monitoring public comment through Teams. Members of the public who would like to comment at any time during the meeting may raise their hand using the raised hand icon, or can leave a comment in the Q&A feature, and our moderator will call on you. First, I will ask if any committee members have items they would like to be placed on a future meeting agenda. And seeing none, no comments by the committee members, I will now turn to general public comment. For this agenda item and future agenda items, I will start with members of the public in Sacramento and then move to members of the public attending via Teams. Please do not forget to state your name before providing comment. Are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to address the committee regarding items not on today's agenda, or to offer an agenda item for a future meeting?
We have one.
Good morning. My name is Phil Vermeulen. I'm president of Contractor Licensing Center. I also represent the Flasher Barricade Association, as well as American Contractors Indemnity. An issue that I had been discussing for several years that I think is long overdue is the matter of when a qualifier is applying for a license, if there's a qualifier of the RMO can qualify up to 3 licenses. The first license, he can have 0% ownership, but he has to provide a qualifier bond, $25,000 qualifier bond. For the second and third license to qualify, they have to show 20% ownership. All that is a box on the application that says the percentage. They write in the 20% holding their nose and go on with life. The board does not verify that 20% if it's valid or not. My proposal is that there should be legislation to allow those qualifiers to provide, in lieu of the 20%, a $25,000 surety bond as a qualifier bond, which would provide, in my judgment, additional consumer protection as well. I've worked with the staff on this before, and I think it's something that I would like to continue working. I think it's something that's, now that the legislature is coming back into session in January, I think it's a very timely to discuss this. That's the first issue. The second issue is, back in 2010, when we being the industry, created the LLC license through the legislature, there was an oversight in terms of the drafting of the legislation. To have an LLC, you have to have a general liability policy. It's the only license that requires that. Unfortunately, there's no grace period. Many times insurance brokers fail to renew the policy for a contractor before their expiration date. It automatically suspends that license. If your workers' comp policy expires, there's a grace period of approximately 45 days in the statute, but there is no provision for the general liability. It's something that needs to be clarified. And again, this is something that needs to be addressed in the next session of the legislature. With that, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that comment from longtime industry stakeholder Phil Vermeulen. His statement relates to CSLB's requirements for qualifying additional contractor licenses under existing law. CSLB studied this issue extensively and raised it at 2 board meetings and held a stakeholder meeting in 2023. Those efforts did not identify consumer protection value to proposing changes to how qualifiers may serve on additional licenses. Of course, if a bill is introduced, the board will consider the legislation and may take a formal position. As far as the limited liability company, general liability insurance issue, CSLB did include this concern in its 2018 Sunset Review report for new legislation, and the legislator did not pursue it. The CSLB looks forward to continuing to work with Mr. Vermeulen on consumer protection legislation that has the additional benefit of supporting licensees and complying with the laws. Please confirm at your convenience, moderator, is there anyone in Sacramento who would like to address the committee? Not items not on today's agenda. All right.
We have no online comments.
Thank you very much. Moderator, are there any members of the public on Teams who would like to address the committee regarding items not on today's agenda or to offer an agenda item for a future meeting?
No public comments.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item C. This agenda item is for staff to provide an update on their efforts to improve communication with legislators to convey CSLB's mission and stress the importance of licensure. Rebecca, can you provide an update?
Thank you, Member Barton. The CSLB has been working to improve and maintain its relationships with California legislators in furtherance of this strategic goal. This work is critical not only because legislators shape the laws impacting CSLB, but because legislators also connect CSLB with their constituents. This connection is key to educating the public regarding safe practices for hiring a licensed contractor, highlighting the work CSLB does to protect consumers, assisting with applications, licensees, and consumer issues. As you undoubtedly remember, CSLB reviewed numerous non-sponsored bills this year. For each bill, the board chose to support, staff voiced support at public committee hearings, drafted letters to the governor and legislative committee chairs, and provided testimony in committee. These active efforts reflect CSLB's dedicated engagement with the legislature and its commitment to advancing the board's consumer protection mission. CSLB's public affairs staff have also expanded their legislative outreach by engaging with lawmakers who have not yet hosted a senior scam stopper event with a focus. In addition, public affairs staff are participating in a webinar this afternoon with Senate and Assembly staff to provide details on how to coordinate outreach events with CSLB. Additionally, staff are preparing to schedule meet and greets for Chair Galarza and Member Barton with key legislators in early 2026. These visits are helpful in gaining support for CSLB's legislative goals and to engage with legislators regarding CSLB's mission to protect consumers. I'd like to turn it over to Registrar Folk to update the committee on the final bullet on the screen related to the September NASCLA conference, where the registrar planned and executed a conference panel.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. The National Association of State Contractor Licensing Agencies, or NASCLA, had their annual conference this summer in Irvine. And I was really pleased that with member Diana Love's vital assistance, we were able to secure Fiona Ma, the state treasurer, to open the conference, and she did a wonderful job. Next, we had a keynote speaker, and that was followed by a panel that consisted of Senator Roger Nilo, who's a Republican, and he is certainly a well-respected business leader in Northern California, and Senator Tim Grayson, who is a Democrat. And Senator Grayson is also a general contractor, and as many of you know, has been helpful with our legislation, as has Senator Nilo. The panel was, we also included in the panel Todd Blumstein. Todd represents the Southern California Contractors Association. That panel that occurred on September the 17th, and I was able to put the panel on the agenda because NASCLA and the executive committee understand the need to show that regulation of contractors is nonpartisan. We titled the panel Regulation, Finding the Middle Ground. And the panel did a wonderful job of explaining to the more than 170 attendees from more than 40 states how to regulate effectively, that protecting consumers, protecting the industry, again, is something that benefits everyone. And so the panel focused on how to message that. We don't want to over-regulate, but at the same time, we want to provide effective regulation to protect consumers. The reviews were outstanding. All three panelists were very engaging. And again, I really appreciate Dana Love for her assistance, Treasurer Fiona Ma, and Senators Grayson and Nilo. They all did a tremendous job.
Mm-hmm.
And Joel, you were there, weren't you?
I certainly was. Yeah, thank you for the invite. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Back to you, Member Barton.
Thank you, Registrar Folk, and thank you, Chief May. I would now like to open this agenda item up for discussion by the committee members. Are there any comments or questions regarding the board's strategic plan? David, any comments?
No online public comments.
Thank you very much. Seeing no additional comments by the committee members, I will now turn to public comment. Are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to address the committee regarding the board's strategic plan? Okay, David, are there any members of the public on Teams who would like to comment on the board's strategic plan?
No public comments.
Thank you. Now moving on to agenda item D. This is review and discussion regarding identifying resource requirements to support a workers' compensation exemption audit process. As you remember, the board sponsored legislation this year related to workers' compensation, Senate Bill 291. SB 291 was signed into law and is effective January 1st, 2026. One requirement of the bill is for CSLB to determine an evidence-based process and procedure to verify eligibility for a workers' compensation insurance exemption and report its findings to the legislature by January 1st, 2027. As you are aware, workers' compensation for all with no exemptions begins January 1st, 2028. The Workers' Comp Advisory Committee, comprised of Chair Galarza and myself, met last week to discuss ideas on how CSLB could determine eligibility prior to the authorizing an exemption and what enforcement resources are needed to confirm future compliance. The Advisory Committee's recommendation was for staff to meet with the State Compensation Insurance Fund, the Department of Insurance, and the Department of Industrial Relations Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, or DSLE, to obtain their exemption pre-qualifying criteria that may include review of financial records, voluntary providing tax documents, and interviews with licensed personnel. SB 291 grants CSLB until January 1st, 2027 to determine how exactly a pre-review for eligibility would be conducted. So there is time for staff to draft a plan for the board's review and approval. However, to obtain staff to conduct a review prior to granting an exemption from workers' compensation requirements, and for any subsequent enforcement, investigation, and prosecution, CSLB will need funding for additional staff. Charging a fee to file an exemption is not without precedent. Currently, another licensing program housed under the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, charges $250 for an exemption from its licensing requirements. Staff will need to conduct a workload analysis and estimate how many applicants are likely to apply in order to determine the fee amount. However, for licenses who do not have employees, these fees should be significantly less than the amount of maintaining a workers' comp policy. Registrar Vogt, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, thank you, Member Barton. Currently, CSLB will discipline a licensee or make a criminal referral for a workers' compensation violation in conjunction with an investigation of a consumer complaint or as part of the proactive enforcement action by our SWIFT unit. However, CSLB does not have staff to perform pre-qualification audits or prioritize future workers' compensation insurance compliance. I think it's important to recognize that we currently have approximately 100,000 licensees that have an exemption on file. So that's quite a large number. And when we think about what would be the resource needs to effectively pre-qualify those that want to file an exemption or to perform additional investigation after they have an exemption to confirm they are compliant, we would need additional resources, as Member Barton noted, but also a budget change proposal so that we would have additional staff. And when I look at this, I think we have 100,000 exemptions today, potentially with the enhanced penalty for violating the law and the greater oversight, we may have 20,000 exemptions. If we had 20,000 exemptions where the person filing had to pay $250, sure my math is right now that I look at that, but I think you could generate about $5 million a year. So when they file the exemption, they have to pay a filing fee, and then when they renew, have to pay a filing fee. You could generate $5 million that could be very effective in providing the staff to perform the audits and the additional investigation. But simply put, without that, we do not have enough staff to determine when a license qualifies for an exemption, nor can we keep up with the complaints that we're already receiving. Our SWIFT unit at one time it was focused primarily on unlicensed practice, but today it's unlicensed practice and probably about 50% of workers' compensation compliance. There's only 27 investigators for 58 counties, something that we'll be looking at with our study that we're performing. So we're really asking for, just closing here, is that we're asking the advisory committee to consider whether this is a good idea, and if you think that it is, the filing fee, that we will coordinate with industry to gain support. I'd like to work with Michael Mark to schedule a strategic partnership meeting next year with the State Building and Construction Trades Council, something we did similar to what we did last October. The thought would be, this would be just one agenda item to see if we do have support from industry to gain additional resources to be more effective at workers' comp enforcement and compliance. Back to you, Member Martin.
Thank you, Registrar Vogt. I would now like to open this agenda item up for discussion by the committee members. Are there any comments or questions regarding agenda item D? I see Michael Mark has raised his hand, his virtual hand.
All right, thank you, Joel. So just a quick question on this. Because of this SB 291 update and with these screens are popping up here. Okay, here we go. Because of like the SB 291 update, I appreciate the update, and then how and the two-person committee trying to figure out ways where we can sufficiently audit this. And maybe this is a question for Rebecca or David. Is the thought to really start creating language for additional funding to target this specific issue? And then is that something where like a board-sponsored bill? Is that kind of what big picture for next year?
That's an interesting question. Rebecca, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I think so. The bill gives CSLB a year to come up with a plan for basically an audit process. So we would have meetings, draft a plan and a proposal. We can talk about how it would be funded within that plan, and then submit that to the legislature by January 2027. And then a bill could be introduced at that point. So we have basically a year to get our ducks in a row on this.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And I think that's an interesting question. If I could comment, Michael, Mark, because that if we get legislation that might be ongoing to combat this and to audit people. Well, thank you. Any other committee members would like to comment? David, do you see anyone? Looks like Diana Love, I think.
Hi, my comment is not on this agenda item, but before we move forward, I believe we skipped the senior scam stopper on item C. Are we going to address that going forward? Or did I miss hearing it?
I think we're going to.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me scroll through. I don't believe public. Yeah, so it might be upcoming, but so noted. If not, we will address it at the end.
Thank you.
Sorry, this is Rebecca May. We covered it in agenda item C. I made comments about how public affairs staff had expanded legislative outreach to lawmakers that hadn't already conducted senior scam stopper events. And then this afternoon, public affairs staff is meeting with Senate and Assembly staff to go over how to coordinate outreach events with CSLB.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to comment on that, Diana? Or
the reason that I thought I had missed it, I was waiting to hear about the upcoming scheduled event for me to participate with Assemblymember Juan Cadillo. So I thought I had missed hearing any type of scheduled events that were happening.
David, any comments?
No online public comments.
Okay, so any additional comments from committee members? Seeing none, are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to address the committee regarding agenda item D?
Thank you. Kyle Vermeulen, Contractors Licensing Center. First off, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the board's efforts towards workers' comp requirements. I know it's been a long sled and look forward to that becoming a reality as this process continues. My comment is in regards to a contractor's ability for workers' comp exemption. As my understanding currently is a D49 tree cutting contractor is required to hold a workers' compensation policy. However, the C49, the more recent tree class, does not. And I would, in my judgment, I just believe there should be parity between both classes to bring an even playing field across that type of trade. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that comment. Is there any other members in Sacramento, public members who would like to address the committee regarding agenda item D?
Phil Vermeulen, you know, this workers' comp issue has been around forever and ever and ever, and we keep kicking this dog down the tracks, and you know, it's beyond frustrating. I think the idea of charging the people that are filing an exemption a fee is a good idea, but I would take it one step further. These audits, make them pay for their own audits. Put that as part of the requirement as well. They're still saving a lot of money over having to have a workers' comp policy. The whole idea here is we're trying to level the playing field. We've been trying to level the playing field for my 45 years, and we're still not there. And it's just unacceptable. 100,000 exemptions now, and we know. And again, I've been raised in the trade, so I know that there are very few people out there that can really perform their work all year round without having additional people working for them. And we've got to get this thing done. You know, if it should have been effective this coming January originally, and then it was kicked back to 28. Then it looked like it was going to be 27. On and on and on we go. Let's get this thing done. Onward and upward. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Phil, for that comment. Is there any other public members in Sacramento who would like to address committee regarding agenda item D? All right, hearing none. David, are there any members of the public on Teams who would like to comment on agenda item D?
No online comments.
Thank you. Now moving on to agenda item E. Item E is review and discussion regarding 2026 proposed legislation. Require hazardous substance certification to conduct debris removal in a declared disaster area. Staff are seeking our feedback today on a draft proposal to require hazardous substance certification to perform debris removal in a declared disaster area. With our feedback, staff will draft a legislative proposal for the full board's review and approval at our December quarterly meeting. If approved by the board, staff will seek a legislator to author this bill proposal on our behalf in 2026. Rebecca, can you explain the proposal?
Thank you, Member Barton. So today's proposal may sound familiar as it was part of this year's Senate Bill 641 by Senator Ashby. SB 641 would have allowed all programs under the Department of Consumer Affairs to waive certain licensing requirements, such as licensing timeframes, examinations, renewal fees, etc., delinquency fees for those whose home or place of business is damaged by a natural disaster for which a state of emergency is declared. The bill also contained provisions related to the Department of Real Estate, requiring DRE to make determinations regarding unlawful or fraudulent practices by individuals in the wake of a declared emergency or disaster area, including unsolicited offers for real property for an amount less than fair market value. And specifically to CSLB, that bill, SB 641, would have confirmed that contractors cannot engage in debris removal in a declared disaster area unless they hold an A, general engineering contractor license, a B, general building contractor license, or both C12 earthwork and paving classification and a C21 building moving demolition classification. The bill would also have required licensees to have passed a CSLB hazardous substance removal certification examination and comply with HAZWOPER requirements established by the Department of Industrial Relations to perform debris removal. And lastly, the bill would have authorized the registrar to allow other classifications to perform debris removal, including muck-out surfaces, on a case-by-case basis during a declared emergency or disaster. So SB 641 passed the legislature, but it was vetoed by the governor, who noted in his veto message that the provisions related to the Department of Real Estate were overly broad, and that the provisions related to the Department of Consumer Affairs were unnecessary because the administration had worked closely with the legislature to coordinate targeted relief and consumer protections to disaster victims without the authority provided in the bill. It is staff's understanding that the veto was not related to the CSLB's specific provisions. Accordingly, this draft proposal will be significantly narrower in scope to SB 641 and simply codifies that a contractor can engage in debris removal, including muck out and ash out, provided they hold an A, general engineering contractor license, B, general building contractor license, or both C12 and C21 classifications. The proposal would also prohibit licensees from providing debris removal services unless they have passed a CSLB hazardous substance removal certification exam and comply with HAZWOPER requirements established by DIR. Currently, there's no designation in contractors law for who can perform debris removal during a declared disaster. Out of necessity, CSLB has made this determination on an ad-hoc basis during recent declared disasters, but it's clear that a permanent solution is needed. By specifically designating who can perform debris removal, including muck out and ash out, CSLB can ensure that workers have the proper training and personal protective equipment needed to perform the work, while avoiding additional health and environmental problems resulting from unsafe debris removal and disposal practices. Further, by codifying these provisions in statute, CSLB can update the exam to ensure that new licensees possess the skills necessary to safely perform debris removal. Back to you, Member Barton.
Thank you, Chief May. I would now like to open this agenda item up for discussion by the committee members. Are there any comments or questions regarding the debris removal legislation proposal by committee members? David? It looks like there's a raised hand.
Chair Barton.
Should I just answer my question?
Of course.
Okay, this is just for clarification. Chief May referenced C21. However, on the screen it said C22, which is the asbestos abatement contractor. So I just wanted for clarification, which number is it?
This is John Kinn. It should be C21, and the underlying word "and" should be directly before the C21. Those are the two typos on the screen.
I'm so sorry.
So it is C21.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. I take responsibility for that typo.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you for noting it.
Are there any other members of the committee?
This is Joseph Preciado. I do have a question. Rebecca, did I hear you say correctly that there isn't a current designation for when there is a need for hazardous substance removal? And so this piece of legislation would designate those that were mentioned earlier. Did I hear that correctly or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other committee members who would like to comment? All right, thank you. Seeing no additional comments by committee members, I will now turn to public comment. Are there any members of the public in Sacramento who would like to address the committee regarding the debris removal legislative proposal?
I have more of a question. My name is Rick Piers, Basic Crafts. It's always been my belief that the general building classification could only be used if that contractor was going to remove the debris but then rebuild some type of residence or commercial building. Is that still the situation, or can a general builder go in there and remove the debris without rebuilding?
Chief May, could you answer that?
Yes, this
Hey,
proposal came about in coordination with Los Angeles County Public Works and who would be able to remove debris with the LA County in the LA County burn area. So the building departments in LA County, along with the public works folks, they looked at our classifications and determined that a B contractor with the hazardous material, substance material certification would be qualified to do the debris removal. And many of the B contractors would not only be doing the debris removal, but also the reconstruction. And so we had numerous, I'll say multiple meetings with these government officials in Los Angeles. So they said the B would be appropriate for most of this, but also we had the C12 earthwork and paving that we authorized to do the grading, the removal, the substance removal on the Butte County fires, Paradise. But LA County was pretty, I would say, adamant that what you have after a fire is you have the chimney still remaining, you have the foundation of the home, that's still there. That's demolition, that needs to be removed. The most important thing that we're looking at is who's qualified to perform this debris removal without compromising the worker's safety, that would understand how to wrap the debris and safely transfer it to an approved landfill. And so needing to have, I think it was 19,000 lots clean, the decision was made the B would be able to do it without having to have a contract for the reconstruction. That's the answer to your question, Rick.
Yes.
And that's why when we look at this, we're talking about legislation that would be specific to declared disasters and what works, what meets the public's interest in getting these lots cleared, whether it's the fire or it's a flood.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Registrar Vogt.
I have one more comment in the room.
Quick clarification on that. So you're saying it has to be a declared disaster? Because I think that's a can of worms there. All of a sudden you're gonna have bees doing, cleanup on jobs that are not disaster areas. So
Well, that's why this, what I think what we're discussing relates to a declared disaster. It doesn't relate to cleaning up a remodel or something like that. No, this is when the governor declares it as a disaster, this legislation would be specific only to that. It wouldn't change the restriction on a B to go out and just do a debris removal as it related to a room addition or a remodel. They would be out of class if it was only one trade. They'd have to subcontract that out to the appropriate classification. This is when you have an emergency situation. Who's most qualified to go out there and meet the need to get this debris removed quickly? Looking back at what happened in LA County, I have Steve here, the number one complaint with the debris removal, it was not unlicensed practice. It was not out of classification. It was workers that were out there without the safety equipment. It was the code enforcement people calling us and saying, you've got people out there claiming to be independent contractors and not giving them any of the safety equipment they need. And that's why the public works folks and the building departments and code enforcement, they wanted a contractor that's licensed and that of course has workers' compensation insurance, but it has that certification. The reason why they want to have that certification is they're more likely to understand that HAZWOPER training is needed and know how to safely wrap up the debris and get it transferred safely. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't think we're suggesting that we open up, we're changing the classification for other work that's not in a declared disaster.
I just see this as a attorney full employment act, to tell you the truth, because on the one hand, if the guy's got certification for the B and he can do it in a disaster area, why can't he do it someplace else? I think it's just going to be one of these, we'll call that Phil Vermeulen's full employment act on expert witness.
We don't want you buying a bigger boat.
God almighty, Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on it. I've got a concern about that. If you can do it on one, why can't you do it on the other?
Thank you. We appreciate those comments. Are we, Moderator Gower, are we in Sacramento or are we on Teams now?
We have no public comments on Teams.
All right, thank you very much. Without any further comments, we would move on to agenda item F, adjournment. Are there any comments before we adjourn? All right, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, legislative committee members, staff, and the public for Yes, do we have one?
Diana has her hand up.
Sorry, Diana, go ahead.
Thank you. Before we go, I just want to give a proud thank you to Registrar Fote for being president of NASCLA. I believe that he has done a fantastic job in his presidency, and I'm sure they're sorry to see him go. And it was my pleasure to be involved in helping with his last hurrah, his last meeting. And I just want to say thank you for all that you did for NASCLA.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Diana. Was there, he got a standing O, and I agree with you. Those will be hard shoes to fill. So I appreciate David doing that also.
Thanks, Bill.
Are there any further comments before we adjourn? All right, great. So today's discussion will help formulate staff recommendations to the full board at the December quarterly meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Cobos.
Do I have a second? All right, second. Thank you. Regularly moved and seconded. This meeting is adjourned at 10:42. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and we will see you in a few weeks.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, okay. Well.